It was supposed to be an ordinary Saturday afternoon, one of those simple days that my daughter looked forward to all week. We had been planning this little outing for days, a trip to the local community fair filled with booths, games, and smiling faces. For most people, it might not have seemed like a big deal, but for my daughter, Emily, who was born with a disability that often made her feel different from the kids around her, it was everything. She had picked out her favorite blue dress the night before, asked me to curl her hair that morning, and practically danced out the door as we left. Her joy was pure, contagious. I was already picturing the photos we would take, the memories we would create. I wanted her to feel welcome, seen, like she belonged in the world just as much as anyone else. That hope shattered in an instant. As we arrived at the bustling venue, the noise and laughter washed over us. Emily clutched my hand tightly, her eyes wide with wonder. We hadn't even made it to the first booth when she appeared. A woman with a pinched expression and a name tag I would remember all too well. Karen. Her words, sharp as knives, sliced through the air. "She doesn't belong here," Karen spat, her gaze fixed on my daughter with thinly veiled disgust. The world seemed to stop. I stood frozen, holding Emily's trembling hand, my heart pounding. Little did Karen know the universe had other plans. Within 24 hours, justice would come swift and sure. What happened next not only restored a piece of my faith in humanity, but also reminded my daughter and myself that no one has the right to tell us where we do or do not belong. Emily is the light of my life. She came into this world on a cold winter's morning, small and fragile, but with eyes that sparkled with a determination far beyond her tiny frame. From the start, we knew her journey would be different. She was diagnosed with cerebral palsy shortly after birth, a condition that would affect her mobility and coordination. The doctors told us she might never walk unaided, might face endless challenges. What they didn't tell us was how fiercely she would fight to overcome them, how her laughter could fill a room, or how her heart would teach us more about love and resilience than we'd ever known. Raising Emily hasn't always been easy. There were years filled with hospital visits, therapy sessions, and long nights spent comforting her through pain or frustration. But through it all, her spirit remained unbreakable. She learned to take her first steps with the help of a walker by the time she was 5. By 7, she was determined to try without it, and even though every movement took effort, she wore her hard-earned independence like a badge of honor. School posed its own set of hurdles. While most children accepted Emily with innocent curiosity, there were always a few who didn't understand or who whispered cruel things when they thought no one was listening. Those moments cut deep, but they also strengthened our resolve. I made it my mission to ensure Emily knew that her worth wasn't defined by her disability, that she deserved every opportunity, every experience that life had to offer. Over the years, we've worked hard to create those moments for her. We celebrate the little victories, being able to tie her shoes, completing a painting in art class, joining in at the school dance, even if her movements were different from the rest. And through it all, she's grown into a vibrant, compassionate, and courageous young girl. Public outings have always been both a source of joy and quiet anxiety for us. While Emily adores going out, whether it's to a park, a movie, or a community event, she is all too aware of the stares and occasional unkind comments. Yet she faces them with grace far beyond her years, holding her head high and smiling at the world. I, in turn, do my best to shield her from harm, but I've learned that I can't always control what others say or do. Still, nothing prepared me for what would happen that day at the community fair. It wasn't the first time someone had looked at my daughter and failed to see the beautiful person she is. But it was the first time someone had dared to say aloud, with venom and conviction, that she didn't belong. And that moment would become a turning point, not just for us, but for everyone who witnessed what unfolded next. The morning of the community fair arrived bright and clear, with sunlight pouring through the windows and a crisp breeze rustling the trees outside. Emily had been talking about this day for weeks. It was one of those annual events that brought the whole town together. Rows of colourful booths, live music, games, and plenty of space to simply enjoy being part of the crowd. For Emily, it wasn't just a fair. It was a chance to feel like every other child, to be out in the world, surrounded by laughter and life. She woke up early, practically bursting with excitement. I found her already sitting at the edge of her bed, clutching the dress she had picked out days earlier, a soft blue one with tiny embroidered flowers. It was her favorite. As I helped her get ready, she chattered about which booths she wanted to visit first and whether there would be cotton candy. I curled her hair just the way she liked, and she checked her reflection in the mirror with a satisfied smile. In those small moments, her joy was infectious. I could feel a familiar blend of happiness and cautious hope rising within me. These outings always carried a quiet tension. Would people be kind? Would anyone stare? I pushed those thoughts aside as we headed out the door, determined to make the day a good one. The fairgrounds buzzed with energy as we arrived. Music drifted through the air, mingling with the scents of popcorn and fried treats. Families and friends strolled past booths filled with handmade crafts and carnival games. Emily squeezed my hand tightly, her face alight with wonder. I bent down and whispered, "Let's go make some memories." We started weaving through the crowd, her steps slow but determined. Every smile she received lit her up even more. I watched her gaze flit from booth to booth, soaking it all in. For those precious first minutes, the world was kind. She belonged fully and completely in that joyful chaos. I was caught in the warmth of the moment, believing that maybe today would be different, that kindness and acceptance would fill every corner. I had no idea that the woman who would shatter that illusion was just around the corner, waiting to turn our day upside down with a few cruel words. We had just reached a row of game booths when it happened. Emily spotted a small ring toss game where bright stuffed animals hung from hooks above the counter. Her eyes lit up, and she tugged gently at my sleeve, asking if we could try. I nodded, smiling, and we made our way over. I could see the booth attendant helping another family, so we waited patiently in line, Emily shifting from foot to foot with excitement. That's when I noticed her. A woman with sharp eyes and a tight mouth, standing behind the counter. She wore a bright orange vest and a name tag that read Karen. Her gaze swept over the small crowd and then landed on Emily. I saw her expression change in an instant, from bored to visibly displeased. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Maybe I was reading too much into it. But then she leaned over to the other employee beside her and whispered something, eyes darting back to us. The other woman's face stiffened, and she glanced quickly away. Still, I pushed the moment aside and moved forward as the family ahead of us left. Emily looked up at Karen with her sweetest smile and said, "Hi, I want to try, please." Her voice was soft but full of hope. I was just reaching for my wallet when it happened. Karen stepped forward, blocking the game counter slightly with her arm. Her voice was cold. "I don't think this is the right place for her." For a moment, I didn't register what she meant. I blinked, confused, and asked, "I'm sorry." Karen's gaze stayed fixed on Emily, her tone sharpening. "She doesn't belong here. This is for the other kids." The air seemed to leave my lungs. I looked down at Emily, who was staring up at the woman with wide, confused eyes, her little fingers still clutching my sleeve. I could feel her grip tightening. I straightened, my voice calm but firm. "She has every right to be here and to play this game like anyone else." Karen scoffed and crossed her arms. "It'll just hold up the line. It's not fair to the others. You should take her somewhere else." Now, a few heads were turning. Parents nearby had caught the exchange, and a hush seemed to settle around us. I could see one mother mouthing unbelievable to her friend. I knelt beside Emily and whispered, "You're perfect. Don't listen to her. We'll fix this." But when I looked up, anger burned in my chest. I rose and faced Karen fully. "You're speaking about a child. You are humiliating her in front of everyone. Do you even hear yourself?" Karen shrugged, unrepentant. "I'm just saying what others are thinking." By now, more people were watching. One father stepped closer and said loudly, "She's a child and she belongs here as much as anyone." A few others nodded. The tension was thick. Karen, perhaps realizing she had drawn too much attention, suddenly turned away as if to ignore us. But the damage had been done. Emily's bright expression had crumpled. Her bottom lip quivered, and tears welled in her eyes. I scooped her into my arms, heart breaking. I turned to the small crowd that had gathered. Did anyone hear what she said? Would anyone be willing to speak to a manager with me? A few people immediately stepped forward, visibly upset by what they had witnessed. One young woman pulled out her phone. "I recorded part of it. I'll send it to you if you want." I nodded gratefully, my mind already racing. As I carried Emily away from the booth, her tears soaking into my shoulder, I whispered over and over, "You did nothing wrong. You belong everywhere." She was wrong. But inside I was shaking, not just from the cruelty of the moment, but from the resolve building within me. This wasn't going to be ignored. This wasn't going to fade away quietly. Karen had crossed a line no one should ever cross, and within 24 hours, she would learn just how serious the consequences of her actions could be. I carried Emily away from the booth, trying to soothe her trembling frame as the sting of what had just happened clung to us both. Her small arms wrapped around my neck tightly, and I could feel her tears soaking into my shoulder. I whispered every reassuring word I could think of, but I could sense the hurt that had already settled in her heart. She had been so excited, so ready to belong, and in a matter of seconds that joy had been ripped away. I stopped near a quiet bench at the edge of the fairgrounds and sat down, cradling her gently. "You did nothing wrong," I told her again. "You belong here, everywhere, always." She sniffled, her voice barely a whisper. "Why was she so mean, Mummy?" My throat tightened. "Because some people don't understand kindness. But that's not your fault. And it's not okay." I took a deep breath, forcing my emotions down so I could think clearly. I couldn't let this slide. Not just for Emily, but for every child who might face the same cruelty. I pulled out my phone and opened the recording the young woman had sent me. Clear as day, Karen's voice rang out, "She doesn't belong here." The words echoed through my mind like a slap. I stood, still holding Emily close, and made my way to the event's main office. A cluster of staff members bustled around inside, handling various tasks. I approached the nearest one, a middle-aged man with a kind face and a badge that read, "Event Manager, Mike." "I need to report something serious," I said, voice steady but firm. "An employee at one of the game booths humiliated my disabled daughter in front of a crowd." Mike's expression shifted instantly. "Tell me everything." I recounted the entire incident, played the recording, and showed him the text messages from witnesses who had already reached out. His face grew more somber with each word. "This is absolutely unacceptable," he said, shaking his head. "I am so sorry this happened to you both. Please, if you'll give me a few minutes, I'm going to escalate this to the event director right now." He disappeared into a back office, and I waited with Emily in the lounge area. She had calmed a little, her head resting against me, but her spirit still felt dimmed. I kissed her forehead, silently vowing that we would see this through. Within minutes, Mike returned with a woman who introduced herself as Lisa, the director. She listened carefully as I replayed everything. Her outrage was genuine. "Thank you for bringing this to us immediately," she said. "I promise you, we take this very seriously. We'll review all footage and speak with the employee today." I left the office with a sliver of hope that accountability would follow. But even as I walked back to the car with Emily, my heart was heavy. The wound had already been made, and I wasn't sure how quickly it could heal for my little girl. What I didn't know then was that the wheels of justice had already begun to turn faster than I could have imagined. That evening, after we returned home, I couldn't shake the weight of what had happened. Emily had retreated to her room, unusually quiet. Normally, after an outing, she'd chatter about every little thing she'd seen, every new person she'd met. But not this time. She sat on her bed with her favorite stuffed bunny clutched to her chest, staring out the window. It broke my heart. I sat down at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. I knew I had to do more than wait and hope. The event manager and director had promised action, but I wanted to make sure that the gravity of what had happened didn't get buried under paperwork or bureaucracy. I began drafting an email to the regional office that oversaw the event company. I included a detailed account of what had happened, attached the audio recording, and added screenshots of the text messages I'd received from witnesses. Several parents had reached out already. Some had heard the exchange, others had noticed Emily's distress afterward and wanted to offer support. A couple even volunteered to submit statements if needed. Their kindness gave me strength. Before hitting send, I read through the email one last time. I kept my tone factual but firm. I wasn't out for revenge. I wasn't looking for some hollow apology. I wanted accountability. No employee who could speak to a child that way, disabled or not, should be allowed to represent an organization meant to serve the public. And more importantly, I wanted to make sure no other child would be subjected to such cruelty in the future. With a deep breath, I clicked send. Almost immediately, I received an automated confirmation. My message had been received and marked as high priority. I exhaled slowly, hoping that meant someone would truly pay attention. Just as I was about to close my laptop, my phone buzzed. It was an email notification from Lisa, the event director. She thanked me again for bringing the matter forward and assured me that an internal review had already begun. According to her message, several witnesses had also come forward independently. They had gathered enough statements and had already flagged the employee to upper management. I read her final sentence twice, my heart pounding. We expect to have a resolution by tomorrow morning and will update you as soon as possible. I sat there for a long moment, the screen glowing softly in the dim kitchen. I felt a mix of exhaustion, hope, and lingering anger. Part of me wished I could shield Emily from the memory entirely, erase the hurt that had been inflicted so callously. But another part of me knew that standing up and demanding better was the only way forward. For her, for every other child who deserved to feel safe and valued in public spaces. I closed the laptop and tiptoed into Emily's room. She looked up as I entered. I knelt beside her and stroked her hair gently. "I talked to the people in charge," I whispered. "They're listening. They know what she did was wrong, and they're going to do something about it." Emily's eyes searched mine. "Really?" I smiled softly. "Really. You are so loved, sweetheart. And you belong anywhere you want to be." She gave a small nod and leaned into me, her trust unwavering. I held her close, silently praying that by morning those words would ring even truer. The next morning dawned earlier than I expected. I had barely finished pouring my first cup of coffee when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but something in me knew it was connected to what had happened. I answered quickly, my heart pounding. A calm voice greeted me. "Good morning, this is Lisa, the event director. I hope I'm not calling too early." "Not at all," I replied, setting my cup aside. "Thank you for following up." She took a breath, then spoke with a tone that held both gravity and relief. "I wanted to inform you personally that after reviewing all the evidence, including your recording, the witness statements, and additional footage from our security cameras, we have terminated the employee in question, effective immediately." For a moment I couldn't speak. The words hung in the air. It was the outcome I had hoped for, but hearing it said aloud left me both stunned and deeply grateful. Lisa continued, "I want to sincerely apologize again for what your daughter and your family experienced. This behavior is inexcusable, and we are implementing additional training for our staff to ensure something like this never happens again. We value inclusion and accessibility, and I'm truly sorry we fell short of that for you." Emotion swelled in my throat. "Thank you," I managed. "That means more than you know. My daughter was so excited for that day. I just wanted her to feel welcome, like everyone else." "You were absolutely right to advocate for her," Lisa said warmly. "She, and all children, deserve to belong." After I hung up, I sat quietly for a long moment, letting it sink in. I wasn't naive enough to think that one termination would fix the world, but in this case, justice had been served swiftly. And that mattered. It mattered to me, and it would matter to Emily. I walked into her room, where she was already awake and playing quietly with her stuffed animals. I knelt beside her and told her the news. "Remember that lady from yesterday?" I began gently. Emily's expression clouded slightly, but she nodded. "Well, the people in charge listened. They decided that what she did was very wrong, and she won't be working there anymore. They want to make sure it never happens again." Emily looked up at me, eyes wide. "Really?" "Really," I smiled. "Because you deserve to be treated with kindness, always." A slow smile spread across her face, small but genuine. "I'm glad," she whispered. Later that day, something remarkable happened. A few of the parents who had witnessed the incident posted about it online, not mentioning names, but speaking to the importance of inclusion and standing up against discrimination. The posts gained traction, and messages of support began to pour in. Some were from strangers, some from friends I hadn't heard from in years. People were listening, they were speaking up. That night, as I tucked Emily into bed, she looked at me with sleepy eyes and said, "Mommy, I'm happy I still belong." Tears pricked my eyes. "You always did, sweetheart. You always will." And as I turned out the light, I knew that no matter how hard the world tried sometimes, no one, not even a woman like Karen, could take that truth away from her again. In the days that followed, I watched Emily closely, searching for any lingering shadow of that awful moment. For all her resilience, I knew her heart was tender. Moments like what happened at the fair could leave wounds far deeper than anyone could see. The first day back at school, she was quieter than usual. She clung to my hand a little longer at drop-off, her smile a bit more hesitant. My heart ached, but I stayed steady for her, reminding her with every hug, every word, that she was loved, that she belonged. One afternoon, as we sat together drawing at the kitchen table, she looked up and asked, "Mommy, why do some people think I shouldn't be places?" The question pierced straight through me. I set my pencil down and took her hand gently in mine. "Sometimes," I said softly, "people don't understand things that are different from what they know. And sometimes they say or do unkind things because of that. But it doesn't mean they're right. You have just as much right to be anywhere as anyone else. You are beautiful, smart, and strong, and no one can take that from you." She seemed to think about that for a moment, then gave a small nod, her grip on my hand tightening. From that day on, little by little, I saw her spirit returning. One of the most heartwarming surprises came a few days later. Cards began arriving in the mail, bright, cheerful notes from families who had heard about what happened. Messages of encouragement poured in, each one telling Emily that she was brave, that she mattered, that she was loved. We pinned them up on the wall of her room, a growing collage of kindness, and with each passing day, I saw her smile grow a little wider, her step become a little lighter. The hurt didn't vanish overnight, but it no longer defined her. If anything, it had given her a quiet strength, and taught us both that when we stand up for what's right, we can make a difference. She still talks about the fair sometimes, but now she does so with her chin held a little higher, knowing that no one gets to decide where she belongs, except her. I've thought about that day at the fair more times than I can count. The memory of Karen's words will likely always linger somewhere in the back of my mind, but so will something far more powerful, the outpouring of kindness and the swift, unwavering response that followed. In a world where cruelty can sometimes feel loudest, it reminded me that goodness still speaks too, and often more powerfully. I chose to share this story not for sympathy, but to shine a light on a truth that so many families like ours face. Parents of children with disabilities know that the world isn't always gentle. We live with the quiet tension of wondering how each new space, each new encounter will unfold. But we also live with boundless hope that little by little, day by day, hearts and minds will change. To every parent reading this, never be afraid to speak up. Your child deserves every opportunity, every space, every joy that life offers. Their presence matters, their voice matters. And when someone tries to tell them otherwise, stand tall. Be their advocate, their fiercest protector, their unwavering source of love. To anyone who witnesses injustice, whether in a fairground booth or a boardroom, don't look away. Say something. Your voice can be the difference between silence and change. As for my daughter, she knows now, perhaps more deeply than ever, that she is seen, valued, and unstoppable. And I know that moving forward, no words, no matter how cruel, will ever define her. We still have a long way to go toward building a world where inclusion is not an afterthought, but a given. But that day, in one small corner of our community, we took a step forward. And sometimes, that's where change begins.